Well, hello everyone, and welcome. We are here for another webinar. My name is Aaron Essary, Assistant Extension Specialist for Viticulture and Enology here at Oklahoma State University. And today we're going to talk about reading a wine label and what all it entails, the laws that go with it. And we're also going to look at some wine labels ourselves. So we will begin. Yep. Okay. So in the United States, wine laws are regulated by the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, also known as the TTB. FYI, so the TTB regulates all of the labeling laws for wine in the United States. Okay, so we'll start with some required information, and then we'll go into optional information, and then we'll just have a viewing of some labels. So required information. These are things that must be on a wine label. And so again, this webinar is kind of back to the basics, back to the beginnings. So we're just going to take it slow. And again, if you have questions, just ask. So what you need on a wine label, for any wine to be sold in the US, these things have to be on there. Again, I'm going to put this up. This slide is not legal advice. So please contact the TTB for full legal information. I'm just trying to present to you what I know. So we'll start with producer with name and address. So on every wine label, there has to be the producer or the brand, where it was made, and the name and address of that producer. City and state. It doesn't have to be street and number, but the city and state of that producer must be on the label. There also must be the appellation of origin, which is also where the wines, where the grapes were grown. So this is something on a wine label a lot of people miss or don't understand, is that if you see a region on a label, that region is where the grapes came from. You see, the state of Oklahoma is, I guess, an appellation. So if the grapes were grown in Oklahoma, you'll see Oklahoma on the label. If the grapes were not grown in Oklahoma, you cannot legally put Oklahoma on the label. You see, you can put the name and address and city and state where the producer produced the wine, but that's a different, we're going to get to that in a minute. So appellation of origin is where the grapes are grown, and that's huge. Wine type. Table wine, sparkling wine, Chardonnay. This is, if you see people put Cabernet Sauvignon on the front label, it's a Cabernet Sauvignon grape. You just have to know that's a red wine. You see, so you have to designate the wine type, whether it be like fortified or sparkling or table wine. You can put Cabernet Sauvignon red table wine, but you're just kind of doubling it, you see, because everyone knows Cabernet Sauvignon is a table wine. So anyway, that's why the Chardonnay is in quotations. Riesling, for example, you can just put Riesling on a label and everyone knows what Riesling is. At least connoisseurs do. So you just have to have the wine type. Alcohol content or percentage. Alcohol percentage must be on the label. You can't sell it if that ain't on there. So that's just how much alcohol is in the wine. Sulfite declaration. It either contains sulfites or it doesn't. You don't have to put the amount of sulfites. You just have to put contained sulfites. And we'll see that on some labels to come. If you've ever, 95% of wine bottles have like contained sulfites. It's a very common practice. The alternative is no sulfites or sulfite free or something like that, but for the most part, it just says contained sulfites. That just means potassium metabisulfite was used in the winemaking process. Net contents, also just the volume. So 750 mils, pretty standard. Or if it's a 500 ml bottle or a 375 ml bottle, you just have to have the volume of wine on there, but 750 is standard. The country of origin. So this is only for importing wines. Let's say you're a winery, but you do buy wine from overseas, let's say Italy. You can buy wine from Italy, put your label on it, but you have to designate that this wine is Italian. You see, so if it's wine from overseas, you have to state that where the wine came from, a product of France, product of Italy. Just FYI. So if it's an import wine, you have to label where it came from. And then also the government health warning statement. This is on every wine label. It's usually in capital letters, and it's your, from the Surgeon General, like pregnant women should not drink wine, do not operate heavy machinery. That just has to be on every single label in the US, just FYI. Okay. And again, this is what has to be on a wine label. This is not legal advice. It's not legal advice, but it is legal laws. Just FYI, contact the TTB for full information. But you will always see these on a wine label. Okay, some optional information. American Viticulture Areas, or AVAs. These are good to put on the label because it's a bigger selling point. It's an AVA. Napa Valley is an AVA. Sonoma is an AVA. Lodi is an AVA. In Oklahoma, we do have the Ozark Mountain AVA, which is in the eastern part of the state. So if the grapes were grown in the Ozark Mountains in Oklahoma and you made wine from those grapes, you can then put Ozark Mountain, Oklahoma. You see, it's just like a higher tier of things. And there's AVAs scattered all throughout the United States. You just have to know where they are, and as you learn more about wine, you learn these. The grape varietal or variety, believe it or not, is optional. You don't actually have to state it's Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's better you do, because most people just recognize, like, you go to, I want Malbec. Well, obviously this one says Malbec. This is what I wanted. So grape variety is actually optional, but most people do put it. And with that, it must be 75%. So you can have for example, I've had a Syrah before that was 86% Syrah and like 14% Mourvedre. But you can still say Syrah. So you can single varietal Syrah. It's 86% Syrah, and the legal limit's 75. So you can say that. What's different is when you get into blends. You see, when you start just blending grapes and you dilute a variety down below 75, you can know it's no longer a single varietal, it's a blend. So you can just say on there white blend, red blend, and you don't have to state the variety. So if it's a 3-part variety that's like 30, 30, 40%, there's no one dominant grape. I can just say red blend, and that's all you need to know. I don't have to tell you the grape. You just know it's a red table wine, red blend. That's all I have to put on the label. So FYI, know your varieties and your blends. The vintage, also known as the year, that's actually optional as well. It's very common. You do put it on a label because all people want to know, hey, this is 2021, this is 2020, this is from 1990. Vintage is optional. It's not mandatory, but again, it's a better selling point. If you have an AVA and you have a year, it's like it's looking nicer and nicer. The only reason you wouldn't put a year is if you cross blended your vintage. Let's say you had some wine left over from 2023, and I'm going to blend it with wine from 2024. It's now a non-vintage wine. You see, I don't actually put a year on that. So it can just be red table wine, red blend all day long from XYZ producer. But if I don't find a year on that label, it's like, okay, this might be a multi-vintage wine, you see. So just look, if you see a year, it's for sure from that year. If you don't, it's multi-vintage. Gluten-free statements. Some people like gluten-free. So if it's a gluten-free wine, you can put that on there. I don't know what really constitutes to that. I've never made wine with gluten, but I don't know. And with that, organic claims and sustainability claims, a little gray area in what is sustainable and organic. I'm still not quite sure. I know if you don't spray your vineyard, if you don't use pesticides or chemicals, you can then say it's more organic or more sustainable. But I'm not quite sure where the cutoff is on what's considered organic and sustainable. But those are optional. So if you see it, just kind of, it was probably sustainable if you see it on a label, but I don't know what constitutes that. And then personalized labels. So sometimes you see like pictures of family members and friends or however that's totally just like that, personalized. That has nothing to do with anything optional. It's just an option you have, but I wouldn't really consider that like selling wine a lot. Anyways, so these are some optional. Again, this is the required information, and then this is the optional information. And any questions on that before we get into labels? Okay, we'll just keep going along. So again, I'm just going to state it, always contact the TTB and the Oklahoma Able Commission for full legal advice. I put their websites there. That's the Able Commission, oklahoma.gov/Able Commission. And then the TTB, the Alcohol, Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, their website right there, ttb.gov/wine. Use them for all your legality needs. Okay. So with that, we'll dive into just some labels. And again, this will be kind of an open discussion. So if you have questions, please blurt them out. We're just going to walk through wine labels a little bit at a time. So we'll start with the first one. Okay, so this is a wine label from California. What do we see here? Well, we see a big Y3, like right up front. That's the brand. Y3 Cabernet Sauvignon. So right there, we see Cabernet Sauvignon. This is a Cabernet. Jack's Vineyards. That could be a vineyard. That also could be the producer. And then North Coast. So in just 6 words, and this is a legit wine label. So we only have 6 words on this label, but it's already telling us a lot. It's telling us it's Cabernet Sauvignon, and then it's telling us it's North Coast. You just have to know North Coast is from California. There's no way to not know that unless you're just, a snob or a connoisseur. So Cabernet Sauvignon, North Coast, Jack's Vineyards. Okay, it's a California Cabernet. Cool. We don't know the year yet until we turn it around on the back. So this is the back label. So Jack's Y3 Cabernet Sauvignon, North Coast, 2021. So it's a 2021 Cabernet from the North Coast in California. This spiel right here, the Y3 blend to symbolize excellence, pride over 3 generations ranch. This is just the marketing aspect of a wine label. So this is just telling you about the wine, kind of how it was made. It's full-bodied plush with a lingering finish. It was aged in French oak. They sourced from a pedigree North Coast vineyard, you see. So in this spiel right here, this is neither right or wrong. It's just, it's marketing. They're telling you about the wine. There's still things like, I don't really know what you can or can't say, but he's telling you they use French oak. It's from North Coast Vineyard, Cabernet, full-bodied, lingering finish. They're describing the wine here, and that's great. Look past that, though, you see jacksvineyards.com. So Jack's is the producer. Y3 is the brand, Jack's producer. But then it says, vented and bottled by Jack's Vineyards, Napa, California. So this is where people get confused. This wine was vented, which means made. Vented is another word for like fermented and racked and clarified and bottled, obviously, but vented is made. So vented and bottled by Jack's Vineyards, Napa, California. Jack's Vineyards, which is the producer, is located in Napa, California. But the grapes, the appellation is North Coast. You see, so the grape itself, the wine, you would say, is not from Napa. The wine is from the North Coast. The North Coast is like just north of Sonoma. It's not far from Napa, but technically this is not a Napa wine. This is a North Coast wine. The producer is located in Napa. You see, this is the tricky part. This wine was made and bottled and produced out of Napa, California, but the grapes are from the North Coast. Just those little differences like that. It's still a California wine. It's still very good and very tasty because I drank this with some people. But just know that. So the winery itself is located in Napa, but these grapes came from the North Coast, just FYI. Alcohol percentage, you just drop down another line. Alcohol, 14.1%, and then contains sulfites. So there's your alcohol percentage, and there is your sulfite declaration. So for sulfites, that's all you have to say. It either contains sulfites or it doesn't contain sulfites. So, and it's very common to contain sulfites. So you're probably always going to see contain sulfites. And then your Surgeon General warning. So there's your government warning. According to the Surgeon General, women should not drink alcohol because of pregnancy. Do not operate a car, machinery. That government warning is always going to be on every label. So this is a California Cabernet from the North Coast that was produced in Napa, but the grapes are from the North Coast. That's a wine label. Let's move along to the second one. Okay. What do we see here? Chateau de Crozet?
Probably French.
It's very much French. This whole wine, this is a French wine label. If you really read this label, it's French. This is a French wine. 2019, Graves. It says Graves, but I think it's pronounced Graves or Grooves or something. But Graves, appellation, Graves Contrôleur, that's their appellation. And then down here, it's just all French. So I don't read French. I can't speak French. But if I drop down a little further, I see that Grand Vin de Bordeaux. Well, vin is wine in French. So VIN is wine de Bordeaux. So this is a wine from Bordeaux. So Grand Vin de Bordeaux. It's a Bordeaux wine from French of 2019. Content de sulfites. So right there in French, it says contains sulfites. It doesn't say contains sulfites in English, but it says contains sulfites in French. There you go. 13.5% on the left, 750 mils on the right. And then because it was brought to America and sold in America, the back label is in English. So right here, the back label, red Bordeaux wine, Chateau de Cosse. I mean, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but Chateau de Cosse is the producer. 2019, Graves Appellation. So this wine is from Graves, France, however you pronounce it, somewhere near outside Bordeaux, inside Bordeaux, from Bordeaux, Graves, anyway. They do designate the varieties here, 60% Merlot, 40% Cabernet. If you know anything about wine, that's a classic Bordeaux blend. When people say it's a nice Bordeaux blend, it's always Cabernet Merlot, just blend them together. And they were generous enough to actually tell you the percentage. Again, their spiel, Jacques, fifth generation winemaker, following his family tradition. They just tell you kind of about the wine, balance of plums, blackberries, sweet spices, well-balanced tannins, velvety tannins, long finish. They're just describing the wine. Drop down a little further, imported by Rochemere Wine Selection, LLC, Wichita, Kansas. You see, so this wine is definitely not from Wichita, Kansas. It was just imported through Wichita, Kansas. So they put that on the label. And then if you read right there, produced and bottled by Chateau de Cosse. So the wine is definitely French. And then as I mentioned, since it's outside, it has to state that it's a product of somewhere else. So down at the bottom left corner, product of France, right there. This wine was produced and bottled in France and then brought to the US and sold on the American market. But it's definitely a French wine. Yeah. There you go, 13.5% contains sulfites. You see? Any questions on the French wine label? Okay, we'll just keep moving along. Grey Brooms, single vineyard, 2023 Sauvignon Blanc. This one says certified sustainable. So they did something in their vineyard to constitute a sustainable label. Again, I'm not sure what that is, but they're sustainable. Marlborough, New Zealand. So on the front label alone, we have Sauvignon Blanc, Marlborough, New Zealand. And remember, it can't be, if it says New Zealand on the front label, the wine is from New Zealand. Like that's not a marketing gimmick. This is from Marlborough, New Zealand. That's a legal requirement. 2023 Sauvignon Blanc, Marlborough, New Zealand. So in just 3 bits of information, I know what it is. It's a 2023 Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand. It's probably great. Three Brooms is the brand. It's a single vineyard. So since the grapes all came from one vineyard, you can designate single vineyard. That's allowed. And they were also sustainable. Flip it over to the back and you just kind of read through it. 13%, 750 mils, 3 Brooms, Marlborough, Sauvignon Blanc. And then again, right there, just in big bold letters, in case you didn't see it on the front label, product of New Zealand. You see, contains sulfites, but then again, don't get tripped up because you drop down one more line, imported by International Vines Incorporated, Santa Rosa, California. So seeing two locations will trip people up on a label, but no, I mean, product of New Zealand, plus it says Marlborough, New Zealand. It says Marlborough twice, this is from New Zealand. It was just imported through Santa Rosa, California. So a company in California bought this wine and they're just selling it on the market. It was imported by Santa Rosa, but this wine is not from Santa Rosa. Does that make sense? Everybody understand? Cool. They also have that 100% vegan stamp. Maybe that has to do with something of their sustainability. I have a chat question here. It is Grave, as in groove. Oh, thank you, Bob. I don't speak French. I'm glad you do. So he was telling us how to pronounce Grave, France. Okay. Any questions on the Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand? Okay, let's keep going. There's a few more, and there's a really tricky one here somewhere in here. Not this one. Although if you don't speak Spanish, this one can be tricky. So let's look at this one. Campo Vieja. Let me check the chat real fast. 1 minute. Okay. Campo Vieja. Rioja. Denominación de origen calificado, Tempranillo, 2021. So this is a Spanish label. If you look up at the top, it says Producto de España. It's from Spain. Rioja is a Spanish region from Spain. So you just have to know that. I'll look at the chat in a minute. Rioja is a region, but then also Denominación de Origen Calificado. I think Calificado, not California, but Calificado is a region like within Spain itself that's maybe out near Rioja. I'm not quite sure there. You see, you just have to learn your Spanish wines if you really want to know what's what. But it says right here, Tempranillo. So this is a Tempranillo wine from 2021 from Rioja, and it tells you on the front label product of Spain. So it's a Tempranillo from Spain. It's from Rioja. It's probably going to be good. Just flip over the back label here. Yeah, there was kind of a glare when I took this picture. But you just look at the back label and follow it through. Again, the back's going to be in English because it's on the American market. They tell you about the intensity, the complexity, and the fruitiness of the wine. Again, it's a Tempranillo, government warning. They put must be 21 to purchase, but then it says product of Spain. So they designate it's a red wine. If you didn't know Tempranillo was red, they tell you, but Tempranillo is red. You just have to know that. Red wine, product of Spain, right there on the back label. It tells you Campo Vieja. It tells you where it's from, the town, you see. So a Rioja from Spain, 2021. That's what they look like. And I got this at the liquor store. Like I just went downtown to the liquor store and picked out this bottle and said, oh, cool, a Spanish Tempranillo. Okay, so I'm reading something from the chat. Okay. Okay, next one. What do we have here? And we see Square Cloud Winery. That's the producer. Alicante Boucher. That's the variety. Texoma. So Texoma Red Wine 2019 Estate Reserve or Reserve Estate. So this wine is from the Texoma region, North Texas. I mean, it is a Texas wine, but it's just south of the Red River. 13.8% by volume. So Alicante Boucher, which is a grape variety from Texoma 2019. So they in a limited information, you can pick what you're getting. You see, once you really learn reading a wine label, and then you just flip it over to the back. Made from our estate, this Alicante Boucher vines. The wine is deep and rich, exploring dark red fruit. So he's just telling you about the wine. The grapes were hand harvested, fermented in open containers, punched down daily with French oak, describing the wine. It's great. Just drop down a little more. Grown, produced, and bottled. So on these other wines, we've been seeing it's been vented and bottled, but this one in particular was grown there as well. I'm sorry, back up. Just little things like that. So this is an estate grown wine from Texas. Contains sulfites, 750 mils, Square Cloud Winery. Okay, next wine. This one's a bit nutty because it's from China and everything is in Mandarin except Great Wall. So they did put Great Wall in English. That's the producer. Great Wall is the producer. They were also kind enough to say Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm sure it does say Cabernet Sauvignon in Mandarin, but in English, Cabernet Sauvignon. So this is a wine from China. How cool. Yeah, I can't read it either. I can see Great Wall and I can see Cabernet Sauvignon and I can see 13%. So we can read Arabic numbers, 13% alcohol. So it's a 13% Cabernet Sauvignon from China. That's all I know. And I'll tell you, it was tasty. I later found out that it was from 2014. I had to look it up and do some research and translate. But this is a legal wine label. You see, it's in Chinese, or it's in Mandarin, excuse me, from China, but it's still a legal wine label. How cool. Yeah. Okay. Couple more labels and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. German. Okay. Litz Weingut. Litz is the producer. Weingut is German for winery. So Litz Weingut, Riesling aus Rheingau. So there's only 4 words on this whole label, but it's told me a lot. Riesling, as we all know, Riesling is a grape variety, white wine. Rheingau. Rheingau is a region. So it's a Riesling from Rheingau, and Litz is the producer. So Weingut Litz, Riesling aus Rheingau. And here's the back label. It's a 2023 Rheingau Riesling, Deutscher Qualitätswein, which means German quality wine. And then right there, product of Germany. So we know off the bat. Well, if you couldn't tell by the front label, the back label definitely tells you product of Germany. It's a still wine, which is a table wine. Einfeld sulfite, which is German for contains sulfites. And then you have this big word here that's Erzugaber Abfüllung. Abfüllung means full, so it was filled by Weingut Litz in Rüchmir al Rhein, so a little town called Rüchmir off the Rhine River. I've never been here, but this wine is from there. But how cool! You see, once you learn how to read labels, you can really say, "Oh man, this wine is from somewhere in Rheingau, a little town called Rüsch." Ah, dang it! My German is still not that good. Rüschim auf Rhein, Abfüllung Weingut Litz, Deutsches Qualitätswein aus Deutschland. Sehr gut. Any question on the German Riesling? Okay, couple more, and then I'll hold all questions to the end because we're almost to the end. 9.5%, by the way. Very nice wine. Here we go. Here's one we all know and love. Sabadia Winery, Chamberson, 2023 Oklahoma. So even fewer words on the front label. There's only 3 words on this label, but that's all you need to know. We have Sabadia, which is the producer, Chamberson, which is the grape variety, and then Oklahoma. These grapes came from Oklahoma. So it's an Oklahoma Chamberson 2023. Flip it around. Here's the back label. Sabadia 2023 Chamberson from Oklahoma. Elegant tannins, overtones of dark red fruit and vanilla. Medium body, 100% Oklahoma. So it says Oklahoma on the label, but then he's also kind enough to tell you it's 100% Oklahoma grown, aged in American oak. And then they put the pairings of what it pairs well with. And then you have vented and bottled by Sabadia, Norman, Oklahoma. Contains sulfites, 750 mils, 13%, government warning. And then the QR code, if you actually, that's not required, but if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to a web page to tell you all about this wine. So this is one that's right here, literally homegrown, close to home, produced in Oklahoma, 2023 Chamberson. So we've seen wines from around the world, around the country, and then also right here in Oklahoma. And this is a great label. And then with that, I think that's the last one. So thank you. And we'll just open it up to a Q&A. I can flip back to any of these slides if you want. California means, thank you, Mark. Okay, so that concludes the presentation. I'll stop the recording and we can have a discussion.